So I have it listed as mushroom blocks, but also it can be referred to as tabletop mushrooms. And I'll give you all a little bit of a backstory with it, how we got started with it. They're really easy to do, but um, the mushrooms, they're really easy to grow. They're basically, you spray them, you cut open the box, you spray them, and they grow. You can put them on the table as like a decoration. It's really neat for something like Thanksgiving, something along those lines, to kind of have it in the middle of the table, but also you can eat the mushrooms. So there's a lot of advantages to having the mushroom box, but mainly the thing that I see is it's so convenient. So I'm not sure if anyone has tried like the shiitake mushrooms, the ones that are in the logs. So that was really popular a few years ago when we tried it here at our office. And it's just a lot of people can do it, but it was just a lot of work. A lot of work, and it's like, are you going to have a flush of mushrooms? And a lot of times people didn't have the right location. It was too much sun, and you go on vacation. Different things happen, and they didn't have the flush that they was expecting. So we kind of did a little bit exploring and found these mushroom blocks, and was like, okay, let's look at something else and how that's going to work. So the mushroom blocks, they're really easy to take care of. I kind of call them like the foolproof. The only thing you have to remember is water. It's just like a plant. If you don't water it, it's not going to live either. There are different types of mushrooms grown in blocks. There are shiitake mushrooms. I will say those are grown in mushroom, the sawdust. And I haven't tried this one yet, but it is a little more difficult to find in the area that we usually order from. I think they sell out maybe quicker, or they have smaller amounts. We have done oyster mushrooms, and the block is just a smaller block, maybe about not even a foot wide. And we put it in the middle of the table. We've had like a lunch and learn before and talked about different types of mushrooms, and everybody kind of got a mushroom block at the end of the class. And it's super easy to take care of. And then there's lion's mane mushrooms, which also can be grown in blocks. So there's all different types that can be grown in the blocks. It just depends on what you want. There can also be comb tooth and chestnut mushrooms as well. Now, mushroom blocks, the ones that we get, we already have them pre-made. You can go online and have, at the end of the presentation, I have an area that we order from, not necessarily that we recommend it, because we can't recommend to order from a certain place, but it's where I have got a lot of our blocks from. But they're already pre-made, and basically you can bring them in, you can store them in the refrigerator if you don't want to use them right then. I think they can store for at least a couple months, just depending on the variety that you have. So if you wanted to start one block and then a few weeks later start another block, that could be a possibility. I know in our office, sometimes we have the mushroom classes and we're like, okay, what about the weather? So we put them in the refrigerator and just kind of wait to make sure everything's going to be okay. And then the day of the class, we bring them out for everyone. But they're already pre-made. You don't have to make them. They're super easy, but there are ways that you can make your own. But basically, I would say those are more like bags of mushrooms. And those are a little more difficult. The box or the blocks of mushrooms are super simple. You literally just buy what you have is what you get, and it's pretty easy. But there are bags that you can make, and you can have it basically with straw, and you would have the inoculant in it, and you can make your own. I haven't tried that yet because it takes a little bit more than I think I'm ready for at this point. So I think you have to like put it in a cooler and kind of have some different stages. With the mushroom blocks, you don't. You basically bring them out of the cooler and you're ready to rock and roll. So the blocks can be used to grow, of course, your mushrooms. They can be really easy for home gardening. We give these away sometimes at our office, like I said, during our lunch programs. And then it can also be done for larger scale. I will say larger scale if you're looking to grow a lot. And you can see that in the picture that there's bags. And the place that we order from walks you through how to do the bags, but it's a little more complicated. You have to have I think the right temperature, you have to have a couple things going on for that. And I didn't think we was quite ready for that. I would say that the mushroom blocks are really great for beginners, or if you're like me and you're like, I just don't have time. The blocks are you spray and basically you go on. So when to start blocks, you can start them at any time. That's the really good part about it is that you can order, you can put them in the refrigerator. They'll tell you how long you can put them in the refrigerator for. So you can kind of space those out. And then all you have to do is basically put an X on it. And then what I mean is like you take a knife and there's a bagging that goes around it, and it will have these little spots that you can mark on them. And I'll show you that in just a minute. So the growing conditions usually are about 55 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, we've had them before, of course, in the winter. Some people have warmer homes, and that's fine. 90% humidity. So I take a spray bottle and we spray ours. And you might spray it once a day if you don't forget. And that's going to help your mushrooms to come on and have that humidity that you need. And then about 8 to 12 hours in direct sunlight. So if you want to set it near a windowsill, not necessarily right up against it, but somewhere nearby, you can do that. And especially on a tabletop, in your kitchen nearby. I will say, as you start to spray it, you might want to put some type of container underneath of it. So hopefully it doesn't stain your table or leak out on a table if you have too much water. So when we got these, we wasn't sure. We've done this for a few years. We wasn't sure how popular this would be in our class. It filled up instantly. It was a really quick turnaround that people really loved it. And we did a lunch and learn. We have also some different recipes that we tried with mushrooms, but it's because it's so easy to do that basically anybody can do it. You don't have to have a yard. You don't have to have, you just have to basically have a window at that. And you can see here that in the picture, it will walk you through, but it shows you where to put the X's. So basically you take a knife and you put an X on each side. And then on the bottom, you will put 2 X's. So with that, that's where you're going to get the fruiting from. And that's where I'll spray the entire block, but make sure to kind of get into those areas good and spray that area of the X. You might kind of lift it up and spray it. Moisture control. So we've had this class, and I've done this also with people that have taken them home, but we've also done this at our local detention center. And I thought, oh, this is going to be an easy way to have mushrooms. So the only issue that you have probably is moisture control. That's a big one that came up for us. So if you don't spray enough, then your mushrooms are not going to grow. If you have mushrooms growing, you're like, hey, I forgot to spray for a little bit. Your mushrooms are going to kind of become hard and they're not going to be edible at that point. So make sure that it's kind of like overwatering. You want to water more and not less, but you just want to make sure to keep it watered, probably like a spritz it once a day. And then you should start to see the mushrooms come on. There are some things that can cause some trouble along the way, just like anything else. If your stems are really thin, like the ones here, that means that you don't have enough light. So you want to make sure maybe put it closer to the windowsill, something along those lines to try to get more light for your stems to get thicker. And then if the block just completely stops growing, you're like, hey, what is going on? You don't have enough moisture. So when you're ready to harvest, these guys will come on. They'll be in to look like this block right here. And it depends on your variety of when you're ready to harvest. We've had the Dove before, and that's a really popular one. But you can see here that the caps are open and they're starting to curl down. If they start to get like a white powder, then it's going to be too mature to harvest. It's going to be kind of tough. So you want to make sure to get it as soon as those start to turn down. You can start to start the harvest. And it really just depends on the variety that you have. And of course, the moisture control that you're going to have with it. Now, when you're ready to harvest, you're going to go ahead and pull the clusters and do a twist. And you can place those in the refrigerator, but make sure you don't want to wash them. It's just like kind of like lettuce and any other produce. If you wash it and put it in the refrigerator, it's going to not last near as long. Some people, you want to kind of just brush off anything that might be on top of those. And when you're ready, you can rinse that with a paper towel and those should be ready to eat for you. You want to make sure to cut off the tip of the end of the stalk as it's kind of tough and get that discarded. So what's really neat is that there is more than one flush. You can have multiple flushes, anywhere from 2 to 4 flushes. They guarantee, typically the company that I've looked at before, is at least 1 flush if you do everything correctly, but you can have multiple. So you can pull everything off. The block can rest for a couple of weeks, and then you can basically start over again, and you might have 2 to 4 more flushes come on at that point. The block will eventually slow down and you won't have near as many mushrooms coming on, and it might turn green, and it's like, okay, it's time to get rid of this one. And you can throw it in your compost pile, and you can compost it that way as well. And here is a company that we go with. And then again, we don't recommend just one certain company, but this is where I've ordered from before. What I really like about them is that they will ship to you anytime. If you want to delay it, they'll delay it. And then it walks you through the process. It's really easy to do. And it's kind of like, I had a lady in one of our classes, and she sprayed hers, she took it home, and she forgot about it in the bag. And she thought, oh my gosh, I've lost it. It's gone. It's not going to be any good. She found it and it was already fruiting. So I'm thinking that, the bag kind of helped with the moisture, but she'd forgotten about it and it just had taken off on its own. So typically you're going to start to see that growth anywhere. Those pins will start to develop 7 to 21 days. They'll start to develop at that point and come on. So probably blocks are one of my favorite, because when I order them, they're ready to go. I just put them in the refrigerator. I hand them out. We put an X on them. We spray them, put them in the windowsill. This past year, we did the toilet paper rolls. I'm not sure if you've all seen those before, but we had toilet paper rolls, and it was like the non-scented, like cheap toilet paper. You soak it in water, and basically the water it's immersed into the toilet paper completely, and you put the spawn inside of the tube of the toilet paper and on top of it. I would say that's a little more complicated because it has to be in dark for so many days, then in light for so many days. You have to spritz it for so many days, so many not. So I would say probably the easiest one that we've done so far is the blocks, because they're ready to go. I'm not sure how many that they will what the orders will be. Typically we order like 10 at a time and have classes. I don't know that they necessarily have it broken down to do one, but they do have a lot of different varieties that you can choose from, and you could put them in the refrigerator as well for overall. So that's pretty well all I have about mushrooms and the blocks. They're really easy. I've had a lot of great feedback from clients. Every year we offer the class. We have a full class, and I wish I had a picture. I had one guy give me, he sent me a text a few years ago, and his mushrooms were huge, like the size of his hands. I mean, it was just huge coming out of this block. You wouldn't believe what he had harvested. A lot of people like to eat them on burgers and different things, salads, and we've had a lot of great feedback throughout the years.